welcome back to this installment of Voices in Cloth. I'm joined by a South African who actually lives reasonably close to me. Shazzy, my darling, how are you? Welcome.
Hey, John, how are you?
Not too
Thank you for
bad.
having me.
It's wonderful to have you. Now tell everybody a little bit about you and where you're based and how your connection in South Africa fits into this project.
So I was originally, I've lived in South Africa for pretty much my whole life. And then in 2011, I got married and we made the decision to move to the UK. And we find ourselves in gorgeous Northampton, um, where we, you know, built a life, and it's been a journey. And I'm glad we made the move because I think if it hadn't been for that, I wouldn't have been a quilter. So,
Do you think
yeah,
that's true?
I know it is. I did not like sewing. I did not attempt it until we got here. And when we moved here, I needed to get curtains for our new home, and it was so expensive. So I bought the most basic sewing machine and I made up, I think, about 4 sets of curtains. I mean, it's cut it, square it off, edge it, beautiful.
Doesn't
And then
she
I had
make it sound so easy, girls and boys?
the house had curtains, and then I had a sewing machine. And a little while later, my sister announced that she was going to have a baby. And I thought, that's so exciting. And I wanted to do something really personal. Like, well, I have a sewing machine. I'm really not very good at dressmaking. Let's see what we can do for the baby. And so I looked around and I found this beautiful Bargello quilt pattern, beginner quilt pattern, pre-cuts. And so off I went. I thought, I'll give this a try. It doesn't look too difficult. I bought very basic equipment and I ran it through the sewing machine, and then came quilting, which scared me, but I thought, not going to know unless you give it a go. Gave it a go, and that was the first quilt I ever made. And bless my niece, she absolutely loves it. It is the wonkiest quilt I've ever made. And it's the most colorful because I didn't know it was going to be a niece or a nephew. And yeah, she loves it. And she's now regularly placing orders. Every time I go over, she gives me a list of things I have to make for her. And the best thing that she loves about it is that you can't buy it in a shop. And she's now 7 years old and she understands the value of handmade.
And just glancing behind you, you've got the Tula Pink All Stars there. I'm looking at all these amazing pieces that you've done because Shazzy doesn't like a small quilt.
What gave it away? So when I started, I looked at all of these beautiful designers and I thought, oh, Liberty, Cave, Tula. And I thought, you know what? For our home, I'm going to make one for every season. And this here is my spring quilt. It has Tula All Stars, and there's some of the other out of print fabrics in there. I absolutely love um, the black and white of this line work range. And so I mashed it. I took the free quilt of the free quilt pattern and I mashed the colors and the line work, and I absolutely love this quilt. And when I took it, because it's a really big quilt, I didn't dare attempt to quilt it myself. And the beautiful quilter said, do you want the quilting to blend? And I said, oh no, I need something, where you can appreciate the quilting and it doesn't just flatten out. And it came out absolutely beautifully. And I think the thread was called Queen of the Night or something to that effect, and I absolutely loved it. So that's my spring quilt. This year is my summer quilt. Let's see if I can do this without destroying everything. I took a class by a brilliant South African quilter who taught me how to do kaleidoscopes.
Called a stack
And
and whack in that class.
it was
Just
called a stack and whack. And I stacked a cave and I whacked it, and I've made my beautiful summer quilt.
that
Um,
really was the most beautiful use of fabric. And now South Africans, I know you're all going to cringe and go, I want to do a stack and whack, but you need almost 7 meters of fabric to make this work. And it's a lot. That's just the main fabric, not the borders, the sashing, the binding. It's a lot, but it makes the most glorious quilts.
I have not a single minute of regret on this quilt. The fabric is breathtaking. There has not been a single ugly kaleidoscope block that came out of it. And I still have some, and I refuse to put it in the scrap pile.
Quite right. Now, if anybody does do the stack and whack, and if you're of a sensitive disposition, turn away now, mute me for 30 seconds, because when you do make the kaleidoscope, one of them always looks like a very angry bum. So you didn't have one of those. You were very lucky. You cut very well.
Right there, right there. I see it, it's in my eye line. And right underneath it is another beauty.
But you've got to be so careful because any form of red, purple, orange, yellow, it looks very angry in certain places.
Yeah, these two are very angry. They're bright pink.
But it is the stack and whack and kaleidoscope process, without question. It is about sometimes using the ugliest fabric, and it just sings when you cut it up like this.
Well, I don't know if you recall that watercolor floral print that I got from you to make the next stack and whack. Well, that's in the process of being made, and oh my goodness, it just sings.
I love
It's
it.
glorious.
I love
And
it.
then over on this side is what I made during lockdown. So that is all leftover stroke scraps. It is a 50-inch quilt that is all English paper piecing. I love the process of just quietly stitching it together. And then one day you look up and it is this beautiful quilt. So yeah, this is one of my favorites. It isn't finished yet, mainly because I have been doodling quilting patterns and design ideas, I'm gonna say, for about 2 years, and there's not one. Every time I look at it with the quilt, I go, no, that's not good enough. You can do better. So it sits unquilted, but it will be, and it will be beautiful.
I think we can agree it's already beautiful, but it'll be more beautiful when you do it.
Oh, thank you.
So Shazzy, you've been sewing now for quilting for did you say how many years?
I'd say 7, because I started when just before my niece was born, when my sister let me know she was going to have a baby. So my niece is amused that I tell her I've been a quilter for as long as she's been around.
Oh, that's very special. And these quilts you've obviously made for yourself, which is lovely because a lot of quilters make quilts for other people exclusively. So it's nice to see you've got them for yourself.
Well, to be fair, at my place of work, every time there was a new baby, they got a handmade, personalized quilt.
Which I think is lovely, but it's you've thought of yourself and you've made things for yourself as well, which I think we sometimes forget to do that for ourselves.
True. And you know, I this year my autumn quilt, so I didn't have a lot of time in the past year. And there's a friend of mine who has moved to Spain and is struggling to find quilt stores. So she's asked me, you know, do you have any kitted out patterns that I could sew up for you, because I can't find fabric. So I sent her the fabric, and my autumn quilt, which as it turns out is William Morris and Moda Grunge, she's made the top for me. And I think that makes it extra special because it's a little bit of me, it's a little bit of her. And one of my really good friends is going to do the quilting for me.
Oh,
And yes,
wonderful.
it takes away, I know it's my hobby and all of those, but I just think that's such a fantastic collaboration of amazing talent. And I'm going to own this piece of art.
And it is, and it's a piece of art made by people you genuinely love, which I think is wonderful. Very,
Exactly.
very cool.
So
So what do you
yeah, I'm
think,
really excited.
what do you think sets you apart from other quilters?
I think because this is for me very much a solitary hobby, I don't have a lot of time to go to meets and socials and retreats. Um, I just listen to my inner voice. And I'll look at it and I'll go, yeah, I could do better. And in the next iteration, I'll give it a go. And um, it's just I do something because I love it. And I hope that's true for all quilters. Because if you sit there and you think, oh, what will so and so think about it? It puts a lot of pressure and takes away a little bit of joy from each item that you do.
I agree. I think you're quite right in that. But it's having the confidence to be able to believe in yourself enough to actually just listen to your own voice rather than get the other quilt police involved in your head.
You can all tell me what you think, and I can choose to do with that
Right?
as I wish.
Exactly. So what drew you to the Voices in Cloth project? Other than me bullying you into it and getting, now I'm so happy because I have her quilt and you can see this beautiful quilt here. It's called Social Butterfly. Now I'm not sure, oh, there we go. As I flick it, you can see the sparklies that she's put on. But my favorite thing of all is when you look at the back, she's even put a sparkle on the eye for social. So I can't tell you how much this means to me. And I'm so glad that I'm able to have a few of these quilts arriving so soon. And Shazzy, you knocked it out the park as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, thank
I love
you.
it. It's so beautiful. And you've done the double carpenter star as well, which is one of the patterns I think you got from me. And
Yeah.
it's a really special project. And the quilting is so thoughtful as well. You've done an amazing job. Well done. What drew
Well,
you to the
thank you.
project?
So the first initial date was the 31st of December, and my heart broke a little because there was no way I was going to be able to do that. And so initially I said, don't think so. And when the date changed to March, I was like, hang on a second, I can do this. And at that point, it was already pretty late. And I was like, I need a pattern. I need something that's gorgeous. I need to not have to look for fabric because I just didn't have the time. And I needed to make it something that was meaningful to me. And one of the things about the project was about the journey from South Africa to wherever the person landed. And, I've always been drawn to butterflies. I think they are God's most incredible creatures. So what went with butterfly? What makes a South African abroad still feel at home? And it's all of the social networks that you build. So wherever you are, you need to have a little piece of home. And that's just come from being part of society. So I thought, okay, social butterfly, two things that, really spoke to me, resonated with me. The pattern, as you say, it has a lot of meaning. I've made two of my most favorite quilts with the 5-inch charm pack in that pattern. And believe it or not, these that's in this quilt, every piece of it is scraps. So I've reused. It's the first time I made a miniature quilt. It's the first time I tried hot glue crystals. First time I tried fabric origami. And I don't recommend this, but it was the first time I did circles without an actual circle ruler.
Well,
That
that's
was
very
very
impressive.
stressful.
Very impressive. And it's one thing you won't do again.
No, because I didn't have time to get it delivered and still make the deadline, the rulers. So, right, what are we going to do?
What did
We
you
did it.
do?
Right, so I took a plate.
I knew you were going to say a plate.
I drew it around on freezer paper, did a 1/4 inch around that, ironed the freezer paper on, and then very slowly stitched it all the way around, and then took the freezer paper off.
And I'm going to do this only because I've got it here, but you can see that stitching. You've done an amazing job. But the quilting on this, you've done such an exceptional job on the quilting.
Oh,
And I know
thank
that
you.
the other interviews I've done, I've not been able to show the quilts because I haven't got them. But I think you can all agree how special. I love it. How
It,
do you feel the diaspora of your journey ties you into being South African in this project?
oh, that's
I
a
know
very
that's a
difficult
tough question.
question. Well, firstly, I think I've brought a lot of color. And for me, South Africa is color. It's all about color. Being, Indian, South African, I mean, you can see from my quilting, I don't shy away from color. I absolutely love it. And that quilt, it's just that the fact that it's I showed it to friends of mine. I showed the quilting to other quilters, the patterns, and it just it's all things South African. It's all things me. It's all things quilters, because everyone had a little say in it, and it was a collation. It was just a collaboration of absolute love, and I think that comes from who you are, your upbringing, your base. It formulates you, your character, what you like, what you don't like. And so yeah, I think when I threw it all in and all of the creativity into that quilt, I had such a great time. That was one of the easiest quilts I ever made. And I'm fairly sure it would have been a lot more difficult if it wasn't South African voices in cloth. It's just a very it was just special to make. I loved it. And I hope the passion came out in the final product, because there was a lot that I loved about that quilt. I almost thought, tell John you couldn't do it, just keep it for myself. And I
You're
thought,
not
no.
the first person to say that to me. I can't deny. But I think it's so special that you have something that you genuinely love that you want to keep. Because, and I think I'm going to do this again because what I don't think people have noticed is look at this binding. Just look how
Oh, the
she's done
split
this.
binding.
It's amazing. You've just done such a thoughtful job on something so special. And you've definitely got a techniques that are very English and very European, but I think you have merged it and made it something very South African as well.
I think I did try the flowers and the gardening and the color, and
But I'm going
it's
to extend that and say also using your scraps, because if you
use
look
what you
at South
have.
African quilting, it's very much a case of use it, use it, use it. And when it's still there, there's use that bit as well. And
Yeah,
using all your scraps to do it, I think you've nailed it. And I think it's just a very special thing that you created.
I go down to about 2.5 inch, and I still use those scraps. I used hexies, and I do little notebook covers, and I must have made about 4 or 5 of them, and
Brilliant.
each one looks better than the last one. So I do not get rid of scraps.
But
It
it's
has
good.
to be.
I think it's really good. Do you think there's anything specific about South African quilters that set them apart from everybody else?
I wish I had more knowledge about South African quilters. I never quilted, and I never even delved into quilting when I was in South Africa.
Same.
So, I came over here, and to be fair, if it hadn't been for my niece and me Googling what I could make for her that wasn't a dress made item, dressmaking or little dress or whatever, I don't even think I would have discovered it. But I also wanted to be a part of her life. I wanted her to have something that she could hang on to every single day and remember that she has an aunt. I might not be there all the time, but I am there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think probably the distance from my family, they all have something. And, you know, my mum's got the biggest quilt I've ever made, my mum has, on her bed. It's just, yeah, it's maybe it's building connections through your art, and, you know, keeping the family ties alive.
Does anybody in your family quilt?
No, but my grandmother and my mum used to sew. They are very good dressmakers. My grand sadly passed on, and she never saw any of my quilting.
I'm sorry.
And my mum just, when I gave her her quilt, I think she just burst into tears, because she's like, your granny would be so proud.
And she would. And she
I
would.
hope so.
So what do you think is next in your quilting journey?
So,
and given the fact I'm potentially one of your dealers, I know what I'm sending you next week.
okay, those are partially for my friend in Spain who cannot get her hands on beautiful designer fabric, and to thank her for stitching up so very many of my beautiful quilts. I thought I would share some of the lovely fabric with her. I'll show you some of the other things that I've made. Obviously not quite quilting, but most certainly making.
And certainly beautiful.
You know, I am still experimenting. I've tried traditional piecing, I've tried kaleidoscope piecing, I've tried English paper piecing, I've made toys, I've made loads of bags.
You know what's left? Foundation paper piecing.
I've just delved into it late last year. I've made little butterfly cushions, which are going to be a wedding present for one of my friends. Don't tell anyone.
It's not like this is going on the internet at all. We don't know which friend.
She'll know. Anyhow, so foundation paper piecing, and then I've got 3 patterns in increasing complexity. I am eyeing the fourth one. And then we'll see where that takes us. And I did enjoy the miniature quilts very much. So I think I may make a few more of those. Just may consider trying my hand at competition in the not too distant. It is, yes. I just need my work-life balance to be a bit more balanced. And then I think I will have the time, the energy, and the creativity left over to give that a good try.
Well, I cannot wait to be a part of it and to see what your next bit in your journey is. Shazzy, is there anything that we may have left out that you'd like to tell us?
Sand fabric.
Next week, I'm back in on Tuesday. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on this installment with Shazzy. Can't wait to see you again. It's been far too long. Lovely to see you, and your piece, glorious. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I've loved it.
See you all again next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hi, my name is Shehnaz Barrett. I am South African from Joburg. I now live in the wonderful UK, Northamptonshire. My quilt is called Social Butterfly, and it is very meaningful to me in that it brings together my love of butterflies, nature, gardening, social interaction, quilting, and love and color. And I hope you see that